how low can ADA price go truly before we see this big, massive extended rally to the upside? The ones that we've been waiting for, the ones that push us towards all-time highs, the one that people want to get excited about. That's what I want to talk about in this video. I've had a lot of people that have just said I'm a perma bull, that I'm way too optimistic and bullish. And no, it's not that at all. I just care more about where price is going to be at the end of the market cycle when I plan on taking profit versus times like this where, frankly, it doesn't matter. But there is a scenario that I want to show you guys. Obviously, we've done a pretty good job of setting up this structural triple bottom in terms of ADA, but does this mean we have some more downside before we see this massive rally to the upside? In fact, there is something that we've done historically that has led us to do these moves. So if you guys are new or haven't already, show your support for the channel down below. Hit that subscribe button, that bell. It's free to do. It'll keep you updated anytime there's new content live here on the channel. So I have to say, first of all, that we're still in a very good spot in terms of ADA. Again, we've done a great job of setting up this technical triple bottom here. We've bounced off this 3 times. We've actually done this in the past as well. We did this right around 51 cents. Right now, we're still fighting that 20-day moving average. We are broken out above that longer-term trend. So ADA's in a spot of comfort. That's what I will say. Love what I'm seeing on the weekly chart. We're talking very much about the potential bullish cross on the weekly stochastic RSI, and that could obviously fuel this next massive rally to the upside for ADA. But there is something I keep coming back to that gives me just a little bit of pause on this. And the big thing is this ETH BTC chart. Now, guys, this is the historic chart from ETH BTC from last market cycle when ETH versus BTC bottomed in late 2018, started 2019. This is what we did. And it's been actually tracking perfect. I don't like that it's tracking perfect because what this shows is obviously some relief until the middle of July and then some potential retracement into the early part of August and then obviously a wick down and subsequent recovery. Basically, this shows that yes, the ETH BTC bottom is in fact in, but there might be obviously some more fits we go through before things take off. This isn't to guarantee your financial advice, and remember that things don't need to play out exactly this way. But when ETH versus BTC is not performing well, typically alts don't like it. That's where you could in fact see some fits in the market. In fact, if we see this taking place, it's very possible we could see some potential BTC downside. Now remember, BTC is currently broken out. It's trying to hold structure here, but there are some scenarios where you could see, BTC actually potentially come down and test the bottom of its trend here. And this isn't to scare people. It's really not that big of a deal. Structurally, it actually makes a lot of sense. We've done this many times before. Let's take a look back here. Last summer, it sucked. At this time, it was huge. You have to remember, we saw retracements from basically 73K all the way down to actually 49, but from a structure standpoint, 52. That's a pretty big drop. BTC has gotten up to a point now where there's a pretty big institutional hold on it, so the volatility is lessening. We're so high in terms of price that the downside is in fact becoming less. But what we could see is some BTC downside that tests some lower ranges. In fact, we take a look at this, the CME futures for BTC, so the BTC one exclamation point chart, there is a scenario where you could in fact see BTC fall from where it's at currently down about 10% or so, 11%. This would actually be to about 96.7 or so. This would actually close our CME gap that we have from all the way back in May. Do I think that we could close this one from, April? Maybe, maybe not. That's a pretty significant drop. That's 91K. But obviously this would cause a fit for altcoins in the market. And you'd probably see ADA see some further retracement on that. Now, why this makes sense from a structural standpoint is if we look at where ADA BTC is at, we've been talking about this very heavily. Actually, the bottom of its trend is down at about 450 sats. So you could actually see ADA fall versus BTC by about 13%. So if obviously BTC is retracing, 10%, 11%, and ADA is retracing 10%, 11, 12, 13% versus BTC, you could see ADA itself fall about, I don't want to scare people, but 20, 25%. Now, again, I'm not being bearish or anything like that, but this is actually a perfect setup for a pretty significant rally. And where this would basically bring us down to here in terms of ADA, and my measuring is wrong here, is down at about 44 to 46 cents. This would obviously be breaking structure, breaking support at about 50 cents, but it would also be a retest of our highs back here in July of 2024. It would make a lot of sense structurally. Why this would also make a lot of sense too is, guys, here's our regression curve in terms of ADA. What have we done when we have come down and breached those levels? we've seen significant rallies out of there. For example, the wick down that we experienced here in the early part of August, that actually led ADA to do a 45% rally. The one that we did here in first part of September, we actually rallied 35%, 36%, right? Saw another 15% run off of this on the breach that we saw at the end of October, okay? And we also saw this once again here in the early part of November. We obviously know that that triggered the 400% run for ADA. Now, again, this isn't to scare anybody or anything like that. Just understand that that type of move could make some sense. I'm not saying it has to happen. I'm not being bearish. Understand that. Again, I care way more about accumulating when there's big discounts in terms of price, and I focus way more on where things are headed. Understand that, like I talked about, we have some great things taking place for Cardano. We have Bitcoin OS. We have obviously the midnight launch coming as well with the Glacier airdrop. We have Ouroboros Laos. There's a lot of things from a development standpoint and a fundamental standpoint that are incredibly good. Huge conviction from holders. And the reason why I would say that that's probably the lowest we go if we do get a significant drop or a big shakeout in the market is, again, you're really trying to unconvict the convicted people. You're trying to convince the people that are unwilling to dump to actually dump. And it's incredibly difficult to do. And all we've seen during this time, even since basically the drop in February, is seeing people buying and hoarding, removing supply from exchanges like I talk about many times that people say, oh, your content's just rinse and repeat. Guys, it's because we need to highlight how significant this is. There is a limited finite supply to go around. And if that finite supply runs out or dwindles any further, what happens when demand hits? You see a pretty significant spark. So I will say sometimes you do need a little bit of a buying event in the crypto market. Sometimes those big shakeouts, guys, they're huge buying events, huge times of opportunity. So that's just what I wanted to share with you guys. Again, don't get me twisted. I'm not bearish at all. I understand that there is the potential for downside. Summers can sometimes be boring. July is typically bottom confirmations in terms of price. Obviously, that would be the start of August, but then August typically yields some pretty significant returns. They pretty much yield kind of the takeoff in terms of price, if you will. If you guys remember, when we look at last August, what was it, right? That was actually when we got our bottom confirmation in terms of ADA, and then we saw our big rallies, right? So maybe that's what we're in for, maybe not, but I wanted to share that with you guys. There is always the potential, obviously, for downside. I love what ADA is doing, and I do think that we have some pretty significant rallies heading into the later part of 2025. I think we got a lot of developments coming from a legislation standpoint. Obviously, Cardano itself has a bunch of developments coming as well. I think that we're going to see some pretty exciting times. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below, but have a great day. Catch you guys in the next one. Take care.